Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Shoop and Aye-Ajay show. It's the fourth show we've done here on this, kind of new and learning along the way kind of podcast we got going. It's AJ Spalski. I'm here with Ben Shoop. A lot to talk about today. We're going to be joined by Ryan Talbot from NY Up, Syracuse.com. He's a writer over there. Find him on Twitter at Ryan Talbot Bills. I sent him the link to his email, but he said he hasn't received it, so we're just double checking here. He'll be in here shortly. Ben, how are you doing today?
Doing good, man. Another Bills win. 2-0 now. I mean, couldn't have asked for a better game, honestly. I mean, when you have the backups come in the fourth quarter, it's been a good game, and we're 2-0 now. On to the Miami Dolphins. So it's the rivalry's a little, it's a little bit better this year now. There's a little bit of a spark in the air. So excited to talk some football. Have Ryan hop in here a little bit later. But, before we get started, I do want to, though, say if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments at the end. We're going to answer a few of them, go over a few of the questions at the end. So be sure to put them in the comments. But, yeah, excited to talk some football, man.
Absolutely. I'm going to try and figure out.
While you do that, I'll recap the game.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, go ahead.
So for every Bills fan, I'm pretty sure the stadium was sold out. So if you weren't at the game, I'd probably watched it on TV. Huge win. It was 7-7 after the first. Then, it was all Bills the rest of the way. We really laid it on them. 34 unanswered points. Diggs, 3 touchdowns, 12 receptions. Allen threw 300 yards, and he didn't even play the fourth quarter. So, you guys all know that obviously it's a big win. The Titans were a team that always seemed to get the best of us. I don't know if you thought that too. I always thought going into these Titans games, somehow they get the best of us. They beat us 2 times before this in the prior 2 years. But, we shut down Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill got pulled from the game. Malik Willis came in. You got to see a lot of guys make plays, a lot of young guys make plays. We did have some injuries that we're going to talk about later. But overall, just an amazing game. I hope everybody enjoyed watching it. I know I did. But what did you think of the game? What was the number one thing for you, AJ, that kind of just stood out after watching this game?
Just like another, solid defensive performance, even with all the injuries that we sustained on the defensive side of the ball. We still did really well defensively. I know that, Tennessee's not some offensive powerhouse, but if they get Derrick Henry going, they're going to beat you. And like that was, I think last year he had 3 touchdowns against us, and it was kind of a, tough game. And, we go back this year and, we held them to, I think, some of the lowest. I think he only had 13 carries. He had 25 yards, 1.9 yards per carry. I think dating back to like 2018, 2019, that is like, one of the lowest of his career. So, I think we did a really good job defensively, and then obviously offensively, no turnovers. Move the ball at will. I mean, Stephon Diggs, dude, like just unbelievable the way he, performed. He had another 3 touchdown performance. He's one of 2 receivers in the league of all time with Jerry Rice. So he's in really good in terms of Monday night performances and 3 touchdowns. So yeah, it was a really overall game, and I'm proud of this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I believe, our 20th straight double-digit win in the regular season, or maybe overall, actually, because including the playoff game. So 20 straight double-digit wins. That's unbelievable. But we're actually going to add Ryan now. So if you want to give a little introduction while we add Ryan here, go ahead, AJ.
All righty. I'll wait for him to come in. Ryan, how you doing?
Hey, doing great. How are you guys?
Good. We're just talking about the Bills-Titans game. You can actually start. You can find him on Twitter at Ryan Talbot Bills. We have it down in the description there. And he's just a writer for Syracuse.com and Aye-Aye-Ajay.com. Ryan, what's your biggest takeaway from the Bills-Titans game on Monday night?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway for me is the performance of Ken Dorsey as offensive coordinator. You see week 1, you see how they perform against the Rams. They move the ball. They put up 31 points, 4 offensive touchdowns and a field goal. You go into this game against the Titans, and again, Josh Allen throws for 4 touchdown passes, 1 to Gilliam, 3 to Diggs, as you guys were just talking about. And they're just making it look easy. Obviously, they threw in a defensive touchdown as well, but Dorsey's come in here. He hasn't missed a beat. He's been in the system, obviously, for a few years as the quarterback's coach, but there's a big difference between being here in the system and actually calling the plays. And for 2 straight weeks, I've been really impressed with the way he's dialed things up, the way that he's scripted things early in games. And then with this game specifically, he saw that the run game was not working, and he went away from it. He said, we're not going to keep going with something, even if it was part of our game plan, if we're not going anywhere. Singletary started out with a nice run, and then it was 0 yards, a loss, this, that, or the other. Moss wasn't effective. Cook wasn't effective early. They all had one nice run in this game, but for the most part, the run game wasn't working. So he said, okay, let's just pass the ball. And from midway in the second quarter all the way until about midway in the third quarter, it was just everything was a pass play. And Allen was hitting short routes to Diggs and company, and it was working. So kudos to him in the way that he's really handled things early on in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely one of the sides that, I mean, the offense, we knew it was going to be great, but there was a lot of questions coming in, like you said, with is Dorsey, can he still bring that firepower, and can he replace Dable and be that guy, that offensive coordinator down the road? And I think he really nailed it. For me, I'm really just impressed. My number one thing, especially last week and this week, but it's the defensive line. I think seeing the pressure that we're able to get and not even have to blitz. I believe we only blitzed 3 times all game last game, didn't even blitz in the opener. And for us to be leading the league, I believe, in sacks is just, it's unbelievable. And it's not like it's just like I know we added Vaughn, but it's not like it's just Vaughn either. Greg's getting in there. You see, I mean, you're seeing Phillips get in there, who obviously might not play this week, but Phillips is getting in there. And it's like he never left. He went to Arizona. He had 2 years there, didn't really pan out. It was a completely different style defense. Now he comes back here, and it's like it's his favorite place on earth. It's like it's Disneyland to him. It's like, you know, he comes here and it's just everything changes. So what do you think about the defensive line, the differences that you've seen in just the way that they're attacking the quarterback getting in the backfield?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you know, DeQuan Jones actually said something about it recently. Is, man, I come to Buffalo and I'm allowed to do a lot more things. He's used to being in Carolina, Tennessee, where it was pretty much, clog up the run lanes, do your job taking on those offensive linemen, where here you can go after the quarterback as well. And, you know, you alluded to Jordan Phillips, and he spent 2 years in Arizona, and listen, he had a nice payday for those 2 seasons there. But he wasn't allowed to do a lot of the things that he could do in Buffalo, and he wasn't allowed to play with the freedom that he has in this system. And sometimes finding players that fit your system is better than finding guys that might be stars elsewhere or have that superstar label, but might not fit the team over individual type of play. And Phillips in two games here has been great. Obviously, there's some questions about his status for week 3 against Miami. But the fact that they were able to do as well as they did in week 2 without Ed Oliver, without Tim Settle, they didn't take down Ryan Tannehill as much, but their front 4 was still causing disruptions. They held Derrick Henry to 1.9 yards per carry. They did a great job, and that was like the weakness of this team over the past few seasons. They couldn't stop the run. If you had a running back that could hit the lanes and hold the ball and control the time of possession, like that Colts game last year, like the Titans game where Henry was able to find the end zone 3 times, it was going to at least be a closely contested game. So far through 2 weeks, the Bills have done a really good job of stopping the run and getting after the quarterback.
We got a question here in the chat, Ben. You want to pull it up?
Yeah. So I guess we'll go right in. Tua and Hill versus Diggs and Allen. What's the vibe? That's the question. So what are we feeling? I guess it's just who do you think is going to win the matchup, and who do you think is going to be, I guess, more important to their team this week? Is Tua and Hill or Allen and Diggs?
Well, I think. Go ahead. Did you want?
Yeah, I was going to say let's actually start with you. I was going to say that.
Okay.
So let's just start with you.
I think they're both licking their chops right now at the late in the week, because you look at the Tua and Hill perspective. Okay, it's not likely that Dane Jackson's back. You have 2 rookie cornerbacks on the outside. You don't know the status of Micah Hyde right now. Jordan Poyer didn't practice today, but he was limited the day before. So realistically, I'm expecting Poyer to play. I think it's going to be 2 rookies at corner, and then if Hyde can't go, you're going with Jaquan Johnson, DeMar Hamlin, maybe in some kind of platoon or rotation. So if you're Tyreek Hill, you're probably really excited because 1, you're going against a rookie. 2, that safety duo. isn't going to necessarily both be back there. If you have Poyer, you're still in pretty good shape, in my opinion. But without Hyde, there might be a breakdown in communication, a breakdown in coverage. And that's exactly what happened last week against the Ravens late in the game. There were some breakdowns where he was able to get free down the field, where he had some advantageous matchups. And we've seen in the playoffs, especially, not so much in the regular season, but in the playoffs, what Hill has done to this Bills defense. So I'm sure they're excited. From the Allen Diggs perspective, well, one, Allen has just dominated the Dolphins his entire career. His one loss could have been a win had Charles Clay caught a touchdown in the end zone late in that matchup. So he could realistically be undefeated against his team. Diggs, he'll be matched up with Xavier Howard, but Howard's been on the injury report, dealing with a groin injury. So missed some time yesterday, was limited today. Even if he plays, groin injuries are no joke for defensive backs, especially when you have to lock down a number one receiver. So I think it's a good matchup for both of these receivers against the cornerbacks. It's obviously a bigger matchup, in my opinion, for Tua and Hill. Allen has other ways that he can hurt you. It's not just going to be Diggs. I think Gabe Davis has a chance of playing. We know what Isaiah McKenzie can do. Jamison Crowder hasn't filled the stat sheet, but he's made some pretty good catches over the first 2 weeks in terms of moving the chains, coming up in clutch situations. Dawson Knox. There's more weapons there. And yes, Tua still has Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, but Tyreek Hill is a game changer in his own right.
Yeah, just moving on, like what the Gabe Davis kind of said today, like he's 100%, kind of optimistic that he's going to play on Sunday. And I'm not quite sure, looking at, what I saw on Twitter today and looking at him like run around in practice, I don't know if he's going to be 100%. Like he might be 100% sure that he might play, but I don't know if he's going to be 100% in the field. So I think it's going to be really important for Allen and Diggs to kind of, have a game kind of like they did against Tennessee, maybe not 3 touchdowns and, absolutely dominating, but you're going to have to move the ball and you're just going to have to be that guy again if they want any chance to win this game, because I'm really nervous about the backside of our, defense in the secondary with, Benford's look good, but, you're going from Traylon Burks and I don't even know the wide receiver 2 on Tennessee, to be honest with you. Maybe Phillips, but he's a slot guy. So like you're going from Traylon Burks and some guy I don't even know to Tyreek Hill and Waddle, who are like the 2 top receivers in the league, or top 2 or 3. So it's going to be really scary for that defense if they don't have, even, I don't know, Poyer was do not practice, Hyde was do not practice, and then you got Benford and Elam, who, they're both rookies, and you're throwing them into kind of a situation where, go guard probably one of the 2 best, receivers in football that, just caught 200 yards and 2 touchdowns last week against the Baltimore Ravens, team in Baltimore. That's really scary. So I think it's really important for Allen and Diggs to, get that connection early and, corral this victory.
Yeah, I think with the Gabe Davis injury, it definitely makes like Diggs have to step up even more than he already has. But I do like one thing Ryan, you said earlier, our run game struggled last week. And if our run game struggles this week, Allen even said in the interview, kind of, our pass game can be our run game. You're seeing those little quick outs with Diggs, just get him the ball, let him go get 6, 7, 8 yards, maybe even get another first down. So I think that really is one thing that I've loved seeing from Dorsey is, yes, okay, run game might not look great, but at least we're getting something that's similar to it, where it's just get it out of his hands, get it to our playmakers, let him make plays, get those yards that we need, instead of, let's try to force it downfield, or let's just try to drop back, Allen just make a play. That's one thing I've loved. But yeah, AJ, just also like you said with Tyreek on the other side, they're going to try to do the same thing. Their offensive line has not really been that too great to start the season, especially against the pass rush, and we haven't even had to blitz to get a pass rush. So that could be something where they're going to try to get the ball out of Tua's hands. They're going to try to get it into Hill and Waddle's hands very fast on screens, on maybe even you see a little jet sweep type action. So when it comes to the matchup between the 2 duos, I think Tua and Hill are going to be more important for the Dolphins trying to get the win compared to Allen and Diggs, because we have so much talent around the whole roster. But I really think that both duos are going to come out and they're going to show out and have just a great game. So any last thoughts on this matchup before we move on to the injuries for either of you guys? Any last thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, just real quick, you guys alluded to it already. The Bills haven't had to blitz this year much at all, and I don't think they're going to blitz on Sunday either. I think they're going to depend on the front four to provide that pressure on Tua, force him to make some mistakes that once he feels pressure, his footwork gets really sloppy. So that's one area where maybe even with those young players in the secondary, with possibly one of the safeties being out, the Bills can kind of force the turnovers that way. You're allowed to then to play your 7 guys back a little bit, really take away passing lanes because, Tua does not have the arm strength of a Josh Allen where he can fit it into very tight windows. If you have 7 guys back on defense clogging up those passing lanes, it's going to make it very complicated and difficult to get it even to Hill on those short routes because you're going to have bodies in the middle that are going to be there waiting for him to hit him. You're going to have guys that are in those intermediate spots, obviously Edmonds and Milano too. So if this defensive line plays like it has the first 2 weeks, I think that's one thing that can really work in Buffalo's favor.
Absolutely. So Ryan, just a quick question about, the injury report. Obviously, Dawson Knox, Gabe Davis, Poyer, all these big names you see on this list right here. Mitch Morse, who actually finished the game but got hurt early. All these guys settle. I think was limited again today. So was Ed Oliver. Of all of these injuries to these key starters, what player do you think would put the Bills at the biggest disadvantage going against a Miami team?
Yeah, I think it would be Micah Hyde. I don't want to say you can make a case for Dane Jackson, but as young as he is, he has a lot of experience playing out there. You wouldn't be forced to play 2 rookies, but it's Micah Hyde. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer play such an important role for this defense, making sure these young cornerbacks are lined up where they're supposed to be, making sure they know the assignments, providing that extra help when needed, really taking away the deep passing game. And that's not to say that Jaquan Johnson or DeMar Hamlin can't come in and do the same. But we don't know. They're kind of unknowns in that regard. What if there is a breakdown in coverage? You're not going to see that very often, if at all, with Hyde and Poyer. But you could with one of these younger guys that aren't used to being out there that often. And so for that reason, I'm going to go with Micah Hyde.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one. I think, we've had by far we've allowed the least amount of touchdowns since McDermott has come here. I think it's by 20 or 30 touchdowns.
It's crazy. It's something crazy. It's like 72 and the next closest is like 110 or something. Yeah. Something wild like that.
And that's the same year Poyer and Hyde got here. So that just shows you exactly how much they mean to this defense. And they've rarely missed games. I know that, but when it comes to this week's matchup, we've already talked about how fast they are, how elite this wide receiver duo can be, and it's going to be a key to be able to keep them from getting behind us, because even though Tua doesn't have the greatest arm, he has been leading them, I think, pretty well. I think he's been anticipating the throws very well, at least in the first 2 weeks, where if he has Poyer and Hyde back there, he might hesitate a little bit compared to if he has Jaquan Johnson. I love Jaquan Johnson. I think he can do a great job if he does have to start on Sunday, but it's a big difference when you go from having an all-pro safeties back there to just Jaquan Johnson, who hasn't really gotten too much live regular season NFL action. So that could maybe put something in the mindset of Tua. So I do think that either one of those guys, Poyer or Hyde, are going to be missed the most by far for us. AJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I would have to go. I mean, I would say the same thing, but I'm going to say Gabe Davis just because of the fact that I think this is the game where, Josh Allen played great the first 2 weeks. Like, he looked at the MVP on the field. But our defense allowed the other team to score 10 and 7 points. This is a game where I don't think Miami's scoring 10 or 7. So we're going to need that Gabe Davis where Diggs doesn't have, all that pressure on him, where he can spread the ball around. I think they need to use Gilliam, use the skill positions like they've been doing. With Dorsey, they've been really, I think they've talked about it all week about, I've just seen it, like the ability for Dorsey to kind of, really fully use all of his weapons and make sure that, like, they are used the right way. And I think he's done a really good job of that. So I think in a big game where, the offense is going, the team you're playing, their offense is going to score points, I think it's huge and pivotal to have your wide receiver too. So, that if it's a slugfest, Ben, you've said it, Tua's not beating Josh Allen in a slugfest. So I think that's a really important thing. So yeah, other than that, nothing much else to say about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, injuries are going to play a big part into this Sunday's matchup, but let's get into the keys to the game, not just, oh, some people need to step up. Unless, if that is it, what part of the game, what part of the team, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, coaching, or just minute little things that we need to do to come out on top. What do you think is your top one, two, maybe keys to the game? We'll start with Ryan.
Defensively, it's the defensive line again. We've talked about it a lot. They need to apply pressure to Tua. They need to be as stout against the run as they have been in the first 2 weeks. The Dolphins do have quite a committee of running backs, Edmonds, and Mostert, and company, and they can hurt you in a lot of ways. So the Bills have to be really good against the run, but more so they have to make Tua uncomfortable to help alleviate some of those issues on the back end of the defense if you are going with 2 rookie cornerbacks, which obviously I think is the expectation after the injury that Dane Jackson suffered, even though he's been out there at practice. He was in a red jersey today off in the sidelines. I don't think there's any expectation for him to play this week. So that's on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball, it's going to sound funny because they've been putting up so many points, but I want to see them figure out the run game in terms of let Devin Singletary be your lead guy. Let him have, and I'm not saying 20 some carries. That's not the Bills offense, but get him into that double digit touch area, whether it's 9 carries and 3 receptions or 12 carries, whatever the case may be. Let him be your number one back. Get into some kind of rhythm. I think that's been an issue with this run game is you rotate between these guys and they can't really get any kind of rhythm or feel of the game. I get that you have 3 guys that you want to utilize. Moss is healthy this year after not being healthy last year, but Moss has struggled early this season. He had like 1 or 2 nice runs against the Rams and 1 against the Titans, but not enough consistency. And Cook obviously fumbling in the first game, ripping off a 30-some yard run late in the game against backups. There's a reason you want to get these guys on the field, but let Singletary really take over that role as number one back, get into some kind of rhythm, and make the Dolphins respect the run game, because I think that they're going to be pinning their ears back and saying, we're not going to let Josh Allen once again beat us with his arm. But if the Bills can show some kind of run game early, then the play action works. Then they have to play for Singletary and company, and that allows Allen to really open things up with his arm.
Yeah, I think everything you said was. I would love to see Singletary used more. I know we and Ben have talked about on prior episodes about Zach Moss. I'm not a Zach Moss stan, but I'm like, and I know Ryan yesterday. Go check it out, the Shout podcast. Great show. They really discussed the running back situation, the running back room, and they brought Nate Gary in, who's been an advocate and quotes for Tua Tagovailoa. So go check that out. But Zach Moss is a guy that I think he always does his job, and he may not do it great. He may not do it he may not blow you away, but when he's asked to do something, he's going to do it. And that's why I think Zach Moss is a guy that maybe he will get less carries and maybe be inactive on Sundays down the road when James Cook gets going, and hopefully they do start using Singletary more as a running back one. But Zach Moss is a guy that I like. He does his job. He's not going to make too many mistakes, and he runs hard. But moving forward to the game, what I've said before, Ben, and like I say every game, it's Josh Allen being Josh Allen. But this game more than ever, because just based on the fact that the injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and he's going to have to play an A+ game, and I really believe that. And he's done that twice this year, and he's done it against Miami his whole career. There's no reason why he can't, and there's no reason why he won't. The key to the game is Josh Allen being Josh Allen and being that guy, that the team needs him to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go in a little different direction when it comes to the offense. For the offense, I think you got to get Isaiah McKenzie a little bit involved a little more, because I know he's a big fan favorite. He had that huge breakout game last year, but I'd like to see a few jet sweeps, maybe just get the ball in his hands quick, let him get to work if he can make a play, because he's he's got the speed. We don't have too many guys that have that type of speed, I feel like, on the offense. I know Diggs is fast, but I don't think he's Isaiah McKenzie fast. Knox isn't the fastest guy. Gabe Davis isn't really the fastest guy in the world. Even our running backs, Moss, Singletary, and Cook's probably our fastest running back. So I'd like to see McKenzie get involved a little more. Maybe even have Singletary and McKenzie back there if Allen's in shotgun. I think you could really, really do a lot there. Throw the defense off. I know they like to use him a lot in pre-snap motions. I would really love to see that a lot. On the defensive side, AJ, I'm going to sound like a broken record here because I say it every single week, and I think we've done a great job so far, but I want to see it throughout the whole season with this Bills defense. It's, again, tackling. I've said it a million times. The McDermott era, that's the one thing that we've struggled with consistently is tackling. I think we've done a great job, phenomenal job these first 2 weeks in tackling and making sure we tackle. And Benford's been one of those guys that's kind of shocked me. He's been a great. I mean, he made that play against Derrick Henry that was everywhere. People were saying, how does a 6th-round rookie make that play? But it's again, especially with these injuries, with the speed that Miami has, tackling is going to be, for me, by far the biggest key to this defense if we don't have those two in the secondary. So I'm going to say it every week probably. It's just the one thing that has stood out to me the most is the tackling. But we can go right into the next topic. AJ, if you want to get us right into that one.
Yeah, so we'll do 2 more things. I'm going to ask Ryan a question if he thinks it's possible, and then we'll get right into our predictions for the game. Ryan, do you coming off a 470-yard performance, in a 6-touchdown game where, he really did. I know it's on the second half, and I know it's, a smaller sample size, but he still did it, and it was, a phenomenal comeback. Can Tua win a big game at home and, kind of put I can be a franchise quarterback and shut up all of his naysayers in the NFL community?
If there was ever a time or a chance for him to beat Buffalo, this is going to be it. You're at home, you're 2-0, you have a offensive-minded coach, and Buffalo's secondary is really beat up going into the game. So it's kind of now or never for him against Buffalo. And I know that sounds very dramatic, but the Bills have really rattled him in years past when they've had their secondary at full strength, even when they haven't had the greatest pass rush in the past few seasons. So I think this is his big opening or window to do so. That being said, I still don't think he's going to be able to do it on Sunday. I think Tua has limitations to his game. I think you can win with him, but not usually because of him. Now, Sunday against the Ravens, it was because of him. He took garbage time, turned it into an opportunity where they kept cutting into that lead. The Ravens weren't doing enough on offense, and then that turned into that opportunity for him. But more times than not, I'm not trusting Tua in that moment. I think he's kind of like a Ryan Tannehill, who the Bills played last week. If all things are going good on your team, the defense plays well, the run game's going solid, you can win games with him under center as your quarterback. But can you depend on him week in, week out if it's his number called like the Bills do with Josh Allen, like the Chiefs do with Patrick Mahomes? Obviously, Aaron Rodgers comes to mind for the Packers. I don't see him being that type of quarterback. And that's okay because there's very few types of quarterbacks like that in this league. So this is his opportunity, though. I kind of feel like he's the Bills in this situation, and the Bills are kind of like Tom Brady. We went through all those decades, where Brady and company dominated Buffalo. I feel like that's what Josh Allen and the Bills have done to Miami and Allen's career and what they're going to continue to do long term. But this is that one window where maybe he can win a game because of the injuries that they have so early on in the season.
Yeah, I mean, perfectly said right there. There's no better opportunity for him, especially coming off a 6-touchdown game. I mean, I think a lot of people were shocked by it. It was a great comeback. I know a lot of people are still hesitant to give him the credit that he deserves, and I'm not going to go as far as a lot of Dolphins fans are going, anointing him, this great next quarterback, even though they were 2 weeks ago calling to say go get a new quarterback. But yeah, I mean, it does look like Hill and Waddle are going to be able to project or elevate his play. And this week, out of any week, this is really it seems like it's Miami's Super Bowl is this week. If they win this game, they're going to go nuts. It's going to be a crazy game. But we do have a question here actually from Shane that I want to bring up. Josh Allen seems to be playing under more control than ever to start the season, doing a better job of taking the easy stuff and not doing too much. Do you think it's natural progression or new offensive coordinator Dorsey? Let's go. AJ, do you want to start this one off? What do you think of the question, and what do you think do you think it's progression, coordinator, or just another factor?
I think it's just the progression of Josh Allen, man. Like, I think Ken Dorsey's doing a great job, like I said, of using all of that talent. But, being at the game last week, there were a couple of times where there were guys open down the field, but Allen still kind of, dumped it off and made the easy throw, took 2 or 3 yards, a couple short passes. But what do you do later in the game? Those short passes open up the middle of the field, hit Stephon Diggs, hit Jake Kummerow. So he's really learning how to, advance his game in terms of, I'm going to take what's given to me in the beginning, even if there may be some options open downfield, and then that'll open the field later in the game, and then I can take those shots, and we can just be that offensive juggernaut that they've been the last couple of years. So I just think it's the natural progression of Josh Allen, and he really is just a great player. He's top 2 quarterback in this league.
Yeah, what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I would say a mix of both. I agree with the progression of Josh Allen. Early in his career, Allen wouldn't take those short gimme throws a lot. He would be trying to take the intermediate deep ball throws, pick up those big chunks. And listen, when you have the arm strength that he does, the arm talent, it's understandable. But he's been in this league long enough to know that you need to sustain drives. You need to put your offense in good situations. And that's part of becoming a franchise quarterback. I think he can go back to games last year, like the Colts game, like the Jaguars game, where things weren't working well. And he can say, okay, if I had done this instead of what I did in that game, if I had taken a short throw and worked to, the way these defenses were being really aggressive, like the Pittsburgh game, like the Jacksonville game, and hurt them in that way, it could have opened up more things. So it's part of it. And then Ken Dorsey, we talked about earlier on the show, the run game wasn't working, but you can get the same amount of yards with those short passes, the way that he drew them up, the calls that he made. So I think it's a mix of both. And obviously Dorsey being here the past few seasons as the quarterback's coach, that plays a big role in it as well, because he's seen those struggles. He knows what Allen can do and the way this offense can move the ball with all the talent that they have.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in year 5 now. It's really where you're going to start seeing it fully put together. You saw it the first 2 games. I think it's also the trust that they're putting in him. I mean, Allen talked about in the press conferences, those 4th downs, a lot of times it's Allen's in McDermott's ear, kind of McDermott's asking him, what do you think here? And they're trusting Allen when Allen says, let's go for it. They're trusting that call, and they're letting him really decide what direction it's going to go. And I do think that's why it was the number one reason I was happy also that we did bring Dorsey instead of another outside coach that wasn't familiar with the system, wasn't familiar with Allen, into maybe the offensive coordinators, because you're seeing him and Dorsey just flow right away. It's like they've been doing it for years. It's almost. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a mix of everything. I think Allen's really just put it all together now. And, I think he's also, I think on that path, because, I think he saw that the players in the NFL only had him at 13. I don't think he liked that. I don't think he liked, again, going home to Kansas City. I think this is the revenge tour for Josh Allen. This is where he puts everything to sleep. He puts everybody else's doubts. It just quiets it down and says, no, I deserve to be in that conversation as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, as the best quarterback in the NFL. And he's finally putting it all together and minimizing those mistakes.
Yeah.
But
go ahead, or you can.
That's all. If you want to go ahead, AJ.
All right, yeah, and before, he didn't make the Pro Bowl last year. But before we get into predictions, Ryan, where can we find you? And then we'll give our predictions.
Yeah, you can find my work on nyup.com, syracuse.com. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Talbot Bills, and you can find the Shout Buffalo Football Podcast and all your major podcast platforms, as well as live on YouTube when usually Wednesday nights, and then live after games.
All right, Ben, you want to start? Let's hear your prediction.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I think it's gonna be a higher scoring game. I think it's gonna be easily the closest game for us so far this season. Although I still think we put up 30 plus. I'm going to go with 37-24. I do think Miami will get some points there. It could even be like a 37-30 game, little garbage time points from Miami, but I think we'll handle it easily. I think that, I think we have too much depth, too much talent, and just a better coach, in my opinion, more experienced coach, in my opinion, or not. It's factual, but I think we have just a coaching staff that is better suited to win a game like this. And I think Tua, as much as he's improved, as much as they love him being the guy now, I just don't think he's ready to get that win yet. So I'm going to go with 37-21. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, the Bills winning this one 35-17. I'm not a believer in the Dolphins right now. I need to see it before I can believe it. I did that for years with the Patriots too. I couldn't pick the Bills for a few years. I said, until I actually see it with my eyes, I'm not going to pick the Dolphins. So there's some advantages for Miami in this game, but until I see Tua and company do it, I don't see it happening. Listen, they only put up 20 points against the Patriots in week 1. That's the entire team as a whole, obviously. In week 2, yes, they put up a lot of points, but the defense has been an issue for them. One of their best offensive linemen looks like he might be trending toward not playing this week, or at least being limited. We talked about Xavier Howard. There's going to be some ways for this team, the Bills, that is, to attack Miami on Sunday, and I think that they cruise to a comfortable victory.
All right, I'm going to do the closest one, but I'm still going to pick the Bills. Based off what Ryan said, I think I cannot pick against the Bills. No, I did. I picked the Rams to win week 1, but I cannot pick against the Bills because Josh Allen rules Miami, and until I see it, like Ryan said, I just can't do it. I think it's going to be one of those games where it's kind of like a classic. When the Bills would start, 2011 Ryan Fitzpatrick, we'd be 3-0 or have a good record. We'd go into New England, and like the game would be kind of close, and then. In the fourth quarter, Brady would get the ball back, and, all our hope would be lost, and he'd come and win the game. I think that's kind of what it's going to be. I think it's going to be like 27-24, 3-point game going into the fourth quarter with Miami winning, giving them that hope. And then I think Josh Allen turns into fourth quarter Josh Allen, and I think we win 31-27, 4-point game. Bills win, move to 3-0, and stay atop the AFC East and silence the Miami Dolphins fans on, Twitter. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you again, Ryan, for joining us. Be sure to go check out all of his stuff, guys. Everything should be in the description in below on YouTube for us. We'll have his handle, everything that you guys need to be able to find Ryan and all of his content and all of everything that he does. So thank you for joining. AJ, any last words before we hop off?
Yeah, sure. Ryan, appreciate it. As always, I've done a couple shows with you. On my first one, when we do it on Zoom, and I'd sit there and I'd be, shaking and stuff. But I'm used to it kind of now, so it's becoming kind of a comfortable thing for me. And I'm just gonna keep working. I know me and Ben really appreciate it. And as always, go Bills, and we'll be back next week to discuss hopefully another Bills victory.
Yeah, before we hop off, Ryan, you want anything you want to say before we hop off?
No, just thanks for having me on, guys. Had a really good time.
All right. Well, be sure to check us out next week, Thursday again. We'll see you guys there. Thanks for watching. And as always,
subscribe to YouTube.
Subscribe, like, comment, everything. Be sure to check us out next week. Thanks again. And as always, go Bills.